Can you guys see my screen okay?
Yes,
Yep.
sir.
Okay, guys, today's training is going to be social validity. Thank you for joining us this morning. We're happy to have you. Social validity, um, we're going to be reviewing applied behavior analysis and social validity today. Why it matters. We're going to be ensuring our interventions, our goals, and our outcomes are meaningful, acceptable, and effective. The target audience is, of course, the BSc clinicians who you guys are, who I will present this information to now. Here we go. So, what are the learning objectives? We're going to be defining social validity, what it is. We're going to identify its three dimensions, and we're going to describe methods to assess it and apply concepts to clinical practice. So let's get right into it. Social validity. What is social validity? Well, it's a concept introduced by Wolf in 1978. It ensures our work is of social importance, reflects relevance to clients, families, and society. So that's kind of how social validity was brought up in ABA. Um, and very plainly speaking, it's the degree to which the VIP finds our involvement acceptable. And that's kind of one of our main goals of delivering ABA, that the VIP finds the work we are doing of importance and enjoyable. And also considering clients, including the parents, guardians of dependent people, and even those whose taxes support social programs, which is all of us, must admire the goals, outcomes, and methods of an intervention. So that's kind of one of the things that we're thinking about when we're delivering clinical care, that not just the clients, but the stakeholders involved, the staff involved, and even society at large, that if they found out what we were working on, that everyone would agree that what we're working on is admirable and of social importance. So that's what social validity is all about. There's three dimensions of social validity that we need to consider when we're doing our work. There's three dimensions of social validity that we need to pay close attention to. And the first one is thinking about the goals. The goals we choose to work on in the behavior support plan need to be important. The goals that we pick need to be of social importance. So, how might we go about selecting goals for our VIPs? What are some ways that we can ensure that the goals we choose are of social importance?
Goals that are important to the VIP or the stakeholders
Yeah, so how do we know that?
by our interviews.
Yes, by our
Yeah,
interviews,
PAs.
asking questions, finding out what's important to them, considering those as possible goals in our behavior support plan. Very good idea. Procedures, and this is mentioning our interventions. Are the methods, our intervention methods that we're doing acceptable? And again, how might we find some input about our interventions?
Data
In your
collecting.
graphing.
Okay, in our graphing, we're going to see if they're working, of course. But before we even get to any of that, what are we going to be doing with our procedures or with our behavior support plan?
I mean, you can even run assessments like Casey Life Skills or, different diagnostic tools to see kind of, what you should be looking for and where and if there are deficits in those areas.
Okay, so we could use our screening tools, our diagnosis tools to help us.
We can also get parent and stakeholders approval.
Yeah, and we should be doing that. And when we mean approval, it's like when I come up with my behavior support plan, I'm going to review the interventions with the stakeholders, with the people involved to ensure that they approve, that they are agreeable to do the strategies in the behavior support plan. And if not, I'm going to go back and find out some insight about maybe why that they don't approve of the strategies I'm choosing, and then revamp my behavior support plan to make it more appealing, more acceptable to the stakeholders, the people that will be implementing the plan. So getting that consent or sign off on treatment is very important. So reviewing our behavior support plan, reviewing the interventions we have chosen with the people who will be carrying it out to make sure that they are acceptable. And finally, the outcomes. So when we are finished with our treatment, when we are working on a goal, are the results meaningful? Are the results what everyone was looking for? And if there was any unperceived outcomes that maybe um, happen, that we could address those as well. So these are the three areas of social validity that we need to pay close attention to: that the goals are acceptable, that the procedures are acceptable, and then finally the outcomes are acceptable. And also, we're thinking about acceptable to three groups of people. And the first one is the VIPs. The second is the stakeholders involved, the direct care staff, the parents, other caregivers that are helping us implement the plan. And then finally, society at large, that if society at large found out, and we're not going out telling everyone in the community what we're doing, but if they did find out, if we would put your work on TV, would the nation be happy with what you're working on? And the answers to all these questions should be yes. So stakeholder involvement, and like I've just mentioned, we're interested in the clients, getting their input about these three areas of our work. Families and caregivers, like I mentioned, that we're reviewing those three areas as well: procedures, our goals, and um, our interventions, our procedures, and our outcomes. Family caregivers, and we also include staff and team members in this as well. And then also community representatives when applicable. So I mentioned, the community at large, if they found out what we're working on, that they would find our work important and meaningful. And think about it, we are paying for this, our service. We are taxpayers and we are paying for the service we are delivering. Isn't it important that we have high social validity to ensure that what we are doing is meaningful for the VIPs we're working with? So why does it matter? Well, it promotes client-centered care. And many times I hear from BSCs, they're not sure what goals to work on. They're not sure um, they're not sure maybe what to choose to help a VIP progress in their life. Well, this could be a good place to revisit. Reviewing, asking questions about goals during your interviews, asking, sometimes with VIPs that have a very good communication repertoire, I could ask them, I said, where do you see yourself in 2 years from now? What do you see yourself doing? And that person could unleash a lot of goals to you in that moment where they're envisioning themselves 2 years from now and what they're doing and what they achieved. And then we could develop goals based on that ultimate outcome or that ultimate vision of what their future looks like, which is pretty cool. It enhances treatment acceptance and adherence. So when we pick goals that are important to the VIP, if we review goals, interventions, and outcomes with our VIP and stakeholders, it almost ensures that the people involved with the plan are going to be much more likely to follow out the procedures in the plan when they had input, when they were able to help select the goals and procedures, when they had a kind of slice of their opinions in our treatment. They're much more likely to follow through with the treatment. And think about our VIPs that are able to select their own goals. They're able to select their own goals. They'll be much more likely to follow through and want to work on them because they have been selected by themselves. So pretty important. It improves long-term outcomes. So when we see that consistency, when we see that people have that buy-in to our treatment plan, it's going to improve our long-term outcomes. And it's going to help support ethical decision making, that we're not kind of overpowering the plan and making these decisions for ourselves, but we have everyone's input into decisions of choosing our goals, interventions, and outcomes. Any questions about this or anything to add? Okay. So when we're thinking about selecting goals in our behavior support plan, we need to ensure that number one, they're socially significant, that they're of social importance. contextually appropriate. And, I think about a normative comparison or what's normal in this environment where our VIP will be practicing this goal or working on this goal. Is this a goal that's normal for the environment? Is this a goal that's normal for this person's age, the environment they're in? Is this a normal goal that they want to achieve that other VIPs in the area or other peers in the area are kind of doing already? We want to make sure it's reachable, that the VIP can reach this goal through ABA interventions, and also measurable, that we can measure or assign a number to it and make sure that we are reaching that goal over time. So we want to make sure we are considering these four areas when we are developing our goals. Example scenario. We have a goal to increase communication skills. So we go in and we are working with the VIP and their family, and they have identified to us that they want to help their son increase communication skills. So that's what we identified as one of our goals. And we came up with a procedure here, functional communication training. We're going to teach this person to man, perhaps, for preferred items, activities. We review this procedure with the stakeholders, with the VIP, make sure that the goal and procedure are acceptable. And then we're going to do a social validity check. We're going to make sure that the family values communication independence. And we identified that in the very beginning, the very onset of service. So we're going to say yes, that they do value it, and they are probably going to approve of this procedure being done. I just want to make sure. I thought there was another one here. Assessing social validity. So we could assess our social validity as we're moving forward. We can ask ourselves these questions. There are also other methods to assess social validity, like surveys, interviews, and questionnaires that we can use. Um, we can observation of generalization and maintenance to make sure that the goals we are working on actually made that significant lifestyle changes. And we could combine client report and behavioral data to make sure that we have strong social validity. Okay. So when are we going to assess social validity? And we kind of already talked a little bit about this, but we're going to do it before identifying meaningful goals. That we're going to be reviewing goals. We're going to be identifying goals with the stakeholders, the family, the VIPs themselves. During our work, we're going to ensure procedures remain acceptable. People can remove consent at any time. People can change their opinions about procedures, goals, and those kind of things. So we're asking throughout the whole process to make sure that they are still find this work we're doing important, that they still think what we're doing is important. And then after, evaluating satisfaction and effectiveness with our stakeholders and VIPs themselves. So we're going to be reviewing with them that they are accepting of what we've achieved with the person. So there's ways to improve social validity. And of course, the main one that we've been talking about so much is collaborating, right? Collaborating with stakeholders, talking to stakeholders, reviewing our treatment interventions, reviewing our plan, reviewing with them what's been working, what's not been working, and making changes based on their input. We're going to provide rationale for interventions or explain why we have chosen certain interventions over others. So it's important we understand those interventions that are being talked to us by BCBAs, but and that you guys are asking those questions about why a certain intervention has been chosen. So you guys could understand it and explain it to the stakeholders or the VIPs themselves. And we're gonna, just like we would about, collecting data, if things aren't going the right way, we're gonna adjust procedures based on feedback, adjust goals based on feedback. So as we're receiving feedback, we are making those changes to the plan to make sure that the social validity is still strong, so we get that treatment adherence that we're looking for. Any questions so far?
No.
Incorporate cultural competence. And this is a section in our FBA, where we're kind of learning about the VIP and their culture. And we're thinking about those when we're choosing treatment interventions as well. Can someone give me an example of a procedure we may not choose with certain cultures? I don't know if you could think of one.
Making eye contact. Some cultures find it disrespectful to make eye contact during conversations.
Okay, yeah, right. So really important to consider when we're selecting goals and interventions and how we deliver service. Okay, appreciate it.
Isn't like a thumbs up in some cultures not right, or a high five or any, like, you have to be careful with that that kind of thing depending on where they're from.
I think you're right, and I think in some cultures, even like a physical touch, like a high five or something like that, could be perceived negatively. So important we have kind of understand the populations that we're working with. Absolutely. Anything else?
Accepting and taking food off families. We had our one client that we work with that you would normally, decline food, but if you in that situation, you might upset them or disrespected them in their eyes.
Yeah, so yeah, we had a family, right, that was from another culture. And we learned that refusing food in this culture was a huge sign of disrespect. So we we would and they would always have food prepared. That's how they greeted guests when they came into their home. So we in this case were permitted to eat a little food while we were there and working because it was their culture. Cool. Thanks for the examples. So ethical considerations. This is making sure we have strong social validity ensures that we are following our BACB code of ethics, which includes client dignity and choice. We are, in fact, helping our VIPs make decisions about their own treatment, which is really a beautiful thing. And it takes a lot of pressure off us as clinicians, in my opinion, when we could get this input from our stakeholders, from our VIPs themselves about what goals they want to work on, right? It's like when they tell us what they want to work on, it makes our behavioral clinical decisions that we're making in our treatment plan that much easier because it really helps guide what we select as an important behavioral goal for our VIPs. So I love that part about social validity is because they are telling me exactly what they would like to work on. And that's a really cool thing, I think. It avoids imposing values. And we have to be always check our own bias. Everyone in here has bias they bring to the table. And doing this method, asking them for input, asking our people we're working with for input and making sure they're acceptable to the procedures. It helps avoid us imposing values or what we may find important on cases. Instead, they are telling us what they think are important for cases. And of course, we could steer that conversation. We can help kind of our stakeholders about what we think might be good areas of treatment. But overall, we want to make sure that we are choosing goals that they select, that they choose are important, that they find that they want to work on themselves. And it ensures that we are getting informed consent and promoting autonomy, right? When we are reviewing our goals, interventions, and outcomes with our stakeholders, we're ensuring that they are agreeable to it, that we have achieved that informed consent, which is part of our code of ethics. So when we are kind of reviewing our behavior support plan, the goals we selected, we are ensuring that this step has been taken care of, that they agree to do the plan and agree to follow the plan. So, another great part about social validity. Measuring acceptability. We can use a client preference assessment. We can use visual aids or simplified surveys as well to help ensure that we have strong social validity. And of course, the most common one that we kind of face out in the field is ongoing discussion and feedback about services and thinking about those three areas: goals, interventions, and outcomes. So having these conversations when you're on session with stakeholders and VIPs themselves about the work we are doing, and if they're still agreeable and accepting of what we're doing and the work we are doing. And also, we want to consider indices of happiness. So you might be thinking, well, Mike, some of our VIPs might not be able to communicate to us in this way to be able to select goals, to make sure that our interventions are acceptable and that they're satisfied of the outcomes. But a method that was kind of brought to everyone's attention to address this issue was indices of happiness. Can anyone tell us what that is?
Signs
That the
that they
client is
show that
happy.
they're happy, like smiling or laughing.
Yeah, exactly. So signs that our VIPs happy while we're delivering services. Oops, sorry. So signs that our VIP is happy with us while we're delivering services. So what that might that be look like? You said smiling, happy. What else? Could be indices of happiness. And I like to, and indices is kind of like a weird word, I thought. So I always think of like indicators of happiness. And
Jumping
what
around, maybe flapping their hands at their sides with a big smile.
Okay, clapping your hands at your side with a big smile, laughing, smiling, approaching you when you come into a room, wanting your involvement with different activities. All of those things could be indices of happiness or signs that our VIP, that we have strong social validity and our VIP is satisfied in what we are doing or satisfied or and happy with what we are working on. Anything else about any of these points?
I would say if the VIP seems to have more motivation to engage in the intervention rather than kind of trying to avoid it or escape it.
Oh yeah, I love that. So we're not so yeah, our VIPs are very involved with it. They're not exhibiting escape maintain behaviors perhaps when we are delivering interventions. Very cool. Very nice. Very nice. Anything else? Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah.
Indices of happiness. Yeah, we want to make sure our VIPs are happy while we're with them. That we are a source of that positive reinforcement. So we have an example here. This is what I was looking for before, I think. We have a client goal that we identified, reduce self-injury. Really important goal that the family, the VIP told us that they would like to work on. We discovered a method of differential not discovered, but we implemented a differential reinforcement procedure and to help with this VIP with this problem behavior. We reviewed it with the family, and they family told us that, well, they're not a big fan of differential reinforcement, and they would prefer proactive skill teaching. Okay. So we're going to make an adjustment, and instead we incorporate communication training. Okay, we're going to review that goal with them, review that procedure with them, and make sure that they are agreeable to that procedure. Incorporate communication training. Okay, so that's kind of what we're kind of posing to you guys to be doing. You know, going out and having these discussions and making changes based on the feedback that we receive. Here's an example number two, a case example number two. We have a goal that we identified through talking with our VIPs and the stakeholders to increase employment skills. Okay, increase employment skills is the goal that we have chosen to work on. We're going to do task analysis training or breaking the skills down into simple steps and working that way and teaching someone a skill that way. And the outcome was that the client reports satisfaction and more independence. So strong social validity, and we're going to continue with that procedure. There's some challenges associated with, well, before we move on, do you guys have any experience with this or any times where you had to make changes to your treatment based on stakeholder or VIPs making not being agreeable to maybe the procedure we chose or the goal we chose? We worked with a VIP one time that we were big fans of using like PEX cards or Pro Loco or the software that helps people communicate. The family met with another professional and they chose this other software called LAMP. And I think it was language acquisition. I forget what the rest of it was, but it was another procedure, other method of communication that we weren't super familiar with. But that was the family's preference that we use this method. So we made that treatment change. We learned how to use that system and deliver ABA through using this LAMP system. And we made that change based on the family's feedback and preference. Okay. Does anyone have any other times or any other examples of families' preference kind of changing the direction of our treatment?
I work with a family where the mother wanted to have more physical activity in his life. So trying to design it around that, getting him more exercise, things like that.
Very nice. Yeah. So considering, what the family find important, very, very good. Very good job. Okay. There are some challenges with social validity. It's subjective. So many of the work mostly everything we do in ABA is objective. We're collecting objective data. We are being very objective, but social validity, as we kind of described, is a more subjective method. We're gathering people's opinions. We're kind of wondering what their opinion is on the treatment that we're providing. It's a challenge because we are balancing data-driven and person-centered approaches. So many times, even if our data shows that what we're doing is working, we may be asked to make changes to our treatment based on the acceptability of our interventions or the goals we chose, right? So even something might be working that we may be making changes because of preference of treatment. So that could be a very big challenge in our work and frustrating in many ways. And there's limited tools for complex populations to kind of evaluate the social validity. So integrating social validity into practice, we're going to include social validity questions in data review forms, which we could do a better job at, but coming up with questions in your data review forms, asking about these questions about social validity, about the goals, interventions, and outcomes. It's our job to train staff, to train our techs, to train BSCs to seek and respond feedback, to actually seek it out, ask what they're doing well, ask where they can improve, and make changes based on what we hear or what the feedback is. And not just kind of waiting around until it happens, but proactively seeking out this feedback from the people we're working with to make sure we're on the right track. And again, we could have been on the right track a few weeks ago, but the preference changes over time, and there is a change that the VIP wants to make, and we have to be able to be flexible and make those changes and make those adjustments. We need to discuss social validity during supervision. So when you're meeting with BCBAs, consultants, that you're just going to discuss these preferences of the VIPs and the stakeholders, and also discuss social validity at your team meetings. And then some research trends at the end. The research is kind of leaning towards increased focus on stakeholder engagement. And think about it, like we mentioned before, when we have high stakeholder engagement, there's a much more likelihood that they will engage in the interventions in the plan, which will lead to just that great client outcome in the end. So when we see that consistency and everyone kind of on the team promoting these interventions are the times we see the most success. It's also the research is leading towards development of new assessment scales to help us in our work, developing more scales, more rating scales to help assess our social validity working with our VIPs. And also an emphasis on cultural and contextual factors. So really an important thing. All these areas would definitely benefit the field. So in summary, social validity ensures ABA is meaningful and acceptable. It's essential for ethical and effective practice and should be assessed continuously, that we never stop assessing our social validity and we're never scared to make changes based on the feedback that we receive. And actually, we need to make those changes based on the feedback that we receive. Does anyone have any questions? Well, I have a question. How can you incorporate social validity checks in your plans?
reviewing how everything's going with the client itself, also with their stakeholders, if they have any questions throughout the months or even weeks working with them.
Yeah, having those discussions, having those ongoing discussions with our VIPs and their stakeholders about our plan is a very important piece here. What other ways? That we
Look at the
learn.
data.
Okay, we can look at the data to make sure we are making that meaningful change in our VIP's life. And that we achieve the outcomes that we have set out to do. What are some other ways? What about our VIPs who might not have this strong communication repertoire? What are we looking for there?
We're looking for the happiness in the
Yeah.
client.
So checking to make sure that the VIP is showing us that they have this happiness, that they are smiling, laughing, enjoying our presence, enjoying our work we're doing is another way that we are checking to make sure what we are doing is acceptable to the VIPs themselves. Anything else? Other methods could be doing those rating scales that we talked about that you could find online. Those rating scales, you could conduct those every so often with the stakeholders and maybe with the VIPs themselves. Also including these social validity checks in your data collection as well, asking if the procedures are still working for them or if they need to make any changes are two other methods that we may consider when we're working with our VIP. And think about like when we have strong social validity guys, how much easier your work is, how much easier your job is, which is significant behavioral change when everyone's on the same page and everyone has a slice of their kind of input in the plan. It just leads to such a better experience for ABA and better outcomes. So and this one you guys might have more answers on. What challenges have you guys faced gathering stakeholder input in the past?
Difference of opinions.
Yeah, difference of opinions. That's a really nice way to say it. Yep, we could have difference of opinions about if some, and that's kind of one of the challenges that we talked about. You know, things might be working and then our stakeholders want to make changes to the plans, which could be frustrating for us.
Negative inputs.
Okay, yeah, negative inputs. Yeah. So we're kind of constantly kind of being faced with that negativity while we're working on the plan. Um, yeah, I think so. I think too, like reverting to kind of interventions that were used prior to our involvement as well, where we're start to see, especially with parents, maybe punishment or using adversives to change behaviors reemerge instead of kind of continuing with our positive reinforcement strategies. So yeah, I totally agree with you there. What else?
I have noticed in cases before what I call the yeah buts when you know, we offer some sort of intervention and it's yeah, but, and then we'll say, okay, well, you know, da 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 da, and they'll say, yeah, but, and it's like, okay, let's try this and reserve our judgment till afterward.
Yeah, we could give it a try and see what happens. You know what I heard a lot when I was in the field more often was they should already know how to do this. You ever hear that one? They should already know. Why are you providing assistance? They should already know how to do this. Why are you making these visual aids? Right? And I'm like, okay, like, and I'm trying to explain to them, hey, we're just trying to get the behavior in motion so we could reinforce it. Right? So I've always heard that with this one case I worked on, and it made it very challenging.
Or a lack of confidence in the person's skills. Like I run into parents who will say like, "Oh, there's no point in working on that. That's never going to change."
Oh yeah, very discouraging.
I experienced that too, and it went on for quite a while with with just different staff. Well, he's never going to learn. And what do you think you're going to help him with? And until that change happened. And then they were like, wow, okay, she's on to something.
Well, nice. I love having that breakthrough, Joanne, when that happens and then you have that full buy-in, full support. I love it.
I loved it too.
And it comes back to our relationship with the people we're working with, developing those strong relationships with strong foundation for treatment. And it's a balancing act, and it's not like we just develop that strong relationship off the bat and never revisit it again. That we are continuously working on our relationships with the people we're working with, constantly building our professional relationships with them, so that when we have teaching opportunities, that we're trying to show them a new way, a different way, um, they are much more acceptable to giving it a try, rather than if our relationships were in the dirt. So for our newer people, what did you learn today? Could we get some input about maybe your opinion about social validity?
I think it's about focusing on trying to be on an even playing field with just the stakeholders in general.
Okay, yeah, being
I
on the
like that.
even playing field and making sure that they have, involvement into what we're doing out there. Cool. Very important. When I learned this as a clinician, it really took a lot of like weight off my back as far as developing the treatment plan, identifying goals and interventions for treatment. That I realized it didn't just need to fall on me to do all this work, which could be, very challenging, so it doesn't all fall on you guys. It falls on us making sure that we are having these discussions with the people involved in the case to make sure that we have their input and they are helping us choose goals and choose interventions based on their input. It's going to lead for a better quality of service and better outcomes in the end. Okay? I really appreciate your participation today. Do you guys have any other questions before we part ways? And guys, just
No,
as
thanks, Mike.
thank you. And just by this quote, I think it's a beautiful quote. Meaningful change is the most valid change. So get out there, keep making those changes with your VIPs. If you guys want to talk about this anymore, I'm always available. Send me a quick Teams message. Be happy to have a discussion about social validity or any other ABA topics. I could help troubleshoot any problems you may be having as well. Never hesitate to send me a message on Teams, guys. I'm available for each and every one of you. Never hesitate to do that. And I hope you guys have a great day. And I really appreciate all the work you're doing for our VIPs. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike.
Have a
Take care.
great day. Everybody have a
Thank
great
you.
day.
You too. Thank
Take
you.
care.
Have a good
Thanks, guys.